Hello, everybody. I believe this is episode 7 of Tickets with Tay. It's been an amazing roller coaster of a journey so far, having some amazing guests, and today is absolutely no different. Would you like to introduce the amazing guest who you have today?
Sure. I appreciate it. It's truly an honor to be on this on your podcast. I watch it religiously. My name is Vipul Modi. I go by VMode on Instagram, and then I have another account called Tickettimemachine where I kind of display all my basically all my collection. Professionally, I'm a radiologist in the United States. I live in the state of Ohio. To be specific, I have a wife and 2 kids, and I've been a collector since I was about 6 or 7. So,
Wow. Incredible. So, I know from your Instagram that you focus on soccer tickets. Obviously, being in America where it's not so popular, what brought you or attracted you to soccer tickets?
yeah, it's really been sort of an evolution since I was about 6 or 7. I distinctly remember the moment my dad took me to get a rack pack or a hanger pack of baseball cards. There was a retail store called Kmart, which was big in the United States, but since it's gone out of business. So it really started, the collecting bug started then. Um, you know, I collected as a kid, all sorts of stuff. I grew up in the Michael Jordan era, so I got to watch
Mhm.
all of those playoff games. I probably religiously watched every single playoff game that he was in, starting in 1988, 89, all the way until his final run with the Bulls in 98. Uh, my uncle actually lived it where I was kind of in the epicenter of really, like Chicago was a couple of hours away. My uncle lived there. So, I'd watch all these games and, I remember that, when I was old enough when he won his first title, we'd, go out to the newspaper station stand and get a
Yeah,
newspaper of, him winning the title the next, basically the article with them winning the title and the iconic pictures the next day. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so just a lot of collecting over the course of it. Then I got kind of busy with school. That was kind of during the Pokemon era in 98,
Yeah.
99. I knew it was happening, but, just didn't have the time or money to collect at the time. Really was busy with college and studies and all that stuff. And then, I kind of got the collecting bug again about 10, 11 years ago.
hmm
Uh, my brother-in-law and I, so he went to this basically ATP Tennis Open.
Wow.
It's almost on the level of like the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, Roland Garros,
Yeah.
Australia
What
Open.
state was it in?
It's in Ohio. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was called the Western and Southern Open, and
It's called the Cincinnati Open right now,
yeah,
isn't it?
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I actually
So
watched the final of that. It was this year. It was Djokovic, Alcaraz. It was a great game.
Alcaraz, yep, yeah, it was
Arguably
amazing,
one of the best finals in history, and it was in such a.
and it
It
was in
wasn't a grand
Cincinnati.
slam. It wasn't a
Yep,
particularly significant game, and it was like the best tennis I've ever watched. So yeah,
yeah.
that puts
That's the
Cincinnati on the map for me.
that's the event, yeah. And what's really amazing is all the big names do show up at this thing. So back then it was the big four was Andy Murray, Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic. So that was like the
Yeah.
big four about 10 years ago. And my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, I went to a practice session. I was like 5 feet away from Federer, and he signed my hat." So I was like, "Oh, I have to go to this next year." So we went together the following year, which was 2013,
hmm
and we watched a practice session. Stop me if I'm rambling, but this is kind of the evolution of like
No,
how I
it's
started.
interesting to know how you've kind of gone through the journey
Yeah.
to get to where you are today.
So yeah, we're standing there. We were like 10 feet away from Roger Federer. He's just sitting there hitting practice balls
hmm
with a couple high school kids, who had the honor to kind of hit around with him. And at the end, he just started, perfect gentleman. I mean, he just started going down the line and signing everybody's stuff. And I had one of the tournament cards that I had for him, and he signed it. He signed my brother-in-law's cap. And then the interesting thing about that day is there was a practice session with Novak Djokovic, just a couple courts over.
Yeah.
It's a very small, intimate tournament, but all the big names show up there. So we went to see Novak, and then there's an entrance area where all the big players walk in. So people line up on both sides and
Hmm.
try to see them as they're coming in.
Yeah.
And I just randomly walked over there. I had to take like a piss break or something, and I ventured over that way. And someone's like, oh, someone big is about to walk through. So I just kind of lined up. I was behind a couple rows of people, and
Yeah.
then I saw Rafa, and he's just walking along the line. As he's coming in, he starts to sign people's things, and I wasn't anywhere near the front, but my arm was long enough where I like stuck my
To
card
reach
out.
over.
Yeah, I reached over, and as he walked down the line, I felt him pull the card out of my hand. He signed it, put it back in my hand, and I pull it. I'm like, oh my god. Um, and then a year later, we were at the same tournament, and they always have a mystery guest, where they cover up the tent, and then it's like there's a line for this mystery guest,
Hmm.
and we're like, maybe it's a kind of a lower level, earlier sort of seeded player or something like that, and um, the guy was arguing with us too because we were trying to get in the line and we didn't, have a ticket or whatever, and then we just started walking around, kind of moping. And then he sees us a little bit later. He's like, "There's some room in line. Why don't you guys get in?" And we're like, "Okay." And they pull the thing up, and it's Joker. It's Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
So,
What year
so
would that
within
have been?
what's that?
What year would that have been?
That was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I saved my ticket from there. I have, from in 2 years, I got the three arguably greatest tennis players, of this era.
Yeah.
And then I just caught the bug from there. I started like delving into cards again. Going back and trying to pick up some, because at this point I had like a job and I didn't have to ask my dad for, money to
Yeah.
collect, for card money.
Yeah.
And,
It's kind of
yeah,
taking that childhood mentality with an adult's budget.
exactly, exactly. Actually, I have to show this to you. So this is the so here's the and I'll get to soccer tickets. I promise. But this was sort of like the genesis of collecting again.
Yeah.
So there's Roger, there's the ticket in the middle, and there's Rafa, and then the year later in 2014, I was able to get Novak. So this was
Wow.
really this was really the the genesis of how me getting the collecting bug again, and then really so I collected cards up until very pretty. I still collect cards here and there, but I really started focusing more on tickets, and I think um, you know part of it is that whole era of the pandemic kind of changed it for me. Uh,
Absolutely. For most people as well, I think.
yeah, my I have a really good friend. His name is Andrew Jenkins. He's the kind of the master ticket collector of like the Cleveland baseball team over here, and
Okay.
he has every single World Series ticket dating back to like the early 1900s, like really vintage tickets. And every single game that they appeared in the World Series, he has a ticket of it. And so we went together to the National, me as a card collector and him as a ticket guy,
Yeah.
in 2018 when the National Sports Collectors Convention was in Cleveland. So it's about an hour and a half away from me. It's actually going to be in Cleveland this year too.
Yeah.
Uh, so we went there and I was doing my own thing with the cards, and he was hunting for tickets, and I'm kind of next to him, and he's haggling with this guy over a baseball debut ticket for Ken Griffey Jr. And he spent, he ended up deciding on a price about $475, and I was $475 for a ticket? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And lo and behold, over the pandemic, everything sort of shot up in price because of just the economic environment, really, and people had nothing else to do. A lot of speculators came in at the time.
Absolutely.
So I
I
started
think
this kind
touching on that, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt.
No,
I
no
just want to
problem.
touch
No
back on that point because it was really interesting. And you thought, oh my God, $475 or whatever it was. A lot of
yeah.
people, especially non-collectors, think, hang on, if the original ticket to get access was $100 and
Yeah.
you're selling it for four times that and you can't even get access, it doesn't make sense. But
And that was
it's an
my
interesting
thought.
paradigm shift.
That was my thought process too at the time. That was my
Yeah,
thought process. Like, I didn't even, you weren't even at this event, and you're paying like 5, 6 times the amount. Like, what?
exactly.
But a lot of it changed for me. He kind of introduced me to baseball ticket collecting, and that's kind of my jump off into ticket collecting. So I started to look for really special stubs and uh, debuts of specific players. Like Derek Jeter from the New York Yankees, just iconic player. Um,
Exactly. I'm not really. Of course, I'm in boogers, but I'm not really super aware of baseball, basketball, American
yeah,
football culture. But again, that's the name that you
yeah,
can't avoid. No matter where
yeah.
you go, you're gonna hear it.
Yeah, so I was able to find a uncut stub of his last game in 2014 where he had a walk-off hit against the Baltimore Orioles. It was like just a storybook way to end his career. He had a walk-off hit to end the the game. They won the game on that walk-off hit, and that was the last game of his career at Yankee Stadium. So I was able to find an uncut ticket, sheet,
Yeah.
which is hard to find in and of itself. And then when he got into the Hall of Fame in 2020 or 2021, there were many opportunities to actually send in to get stuff signed. So I was like, oh, this is my chance. So this is one of my favorites. I have to show this one to you. So this is the uncut
Blimey, it's
stub of the
huge.
final game. Yeah, and Jeter. I asked Jeter if he just signed it across the bottom over here in blue
Hmm.
Sharpie, and that's the result right there. So um,
Fantastic. So that was
yeah,
his
so
last ever game. Is that correct?
that was his last game at Yankee Stadium.
Okay, got you.
And it's kind of iconic in baseball circles because he had a walk-off hit. This guy was just every moment of this guy's career was magical. Every time he stepped to the plate, he just did something awesome. Yeah, so then I got into baseball ticket collecting, and I finally started to really understand that, like, oh yeah, like they're
Maybe
they're
they
good.
are worth more than the initial entry price.
Yes, oh yes, yeah, and yeah, so and even then, like, I used to save tickets, of events that I went to, but I never
Mhm.
still recently, until the kind of pandemic and all this happening, I didn't see the value in like paying extra for that ticket. But I mean, now I've got the bug, man. Like
And it all
I
makes
tell my friends,
sense.
I tell my friends about it, and they're like, "You're sick, man. You are sick. You have a disease."
Well, I
But
mean, I'm sure that's because they've heard some of the amazing tickets you picked up recently. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen on your Instagram that you're the owner of arguably the most memorable soccer moment in time. I mean,
yeah,
there's very few moments as big as that, mentioned by many people in modern day football, and that's obviously the hand of God, and then that
yeah.
coupled with that same moment of a goal of the century, and you own the highest graded copy of that, which is absolutely massive. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
What made you go with that ticket over anything else?
you. So during the pandemic, I sort of pivoted to soccer. Interestingly, the only sport that was available to watch in America during the pandemic
Yeah,
early on was Premier League soccer. So I, just as a guy who loves sports, I would just sit down to watch anything. Just
yeah,
your mind starts going crazy after 2 3 months of no sports. And there was no basketball, there was no baseball. Spring training was canceled, but soccer was on, and I just started to delve in this rabbit hole of learning about players. I always knew about Maradona, Hand of God. I mean, it's
yeah.
iconic. And that was about the time I started collecting in 1986 when I was like 7 years old. Um,
Hmm.
but and then my wife and I, we've traveled to Argentina, South America about 10 years ago before we had kids. And you go to Argentina, and this guy is like treated like he is.
Worshipped.
Yeah, he is a god over there. I mean, he is a deity. You walk around, you see statues of Maradona, you see like beautiful murals of Maradona. You see statues of three people basically: Jesus, Evita, and Maradona. And I
Yeah,
think it's turning into Messi now a little bit after
absolutely.
2022 or Qatar. But we walked around there. I fell in love with the country. First of all, everyone was really nice. But there's a mythology about Maradona down there that is just so palpable. I mean, they love the guy, and
And for
you
good
know,
reason. He was an incredible player, and
yeah,
probably was at the beginning of an era of kind of globalizing football. Before
for
that,
sure.
it was obviously mass adopted in the UK. It was one of the most popular sports, but in terms of globalizing it and monetizing it, it was really in that era, kind of blending onto the 90s, where it became a global
Yeah,
financial sport. So yeah, he
for
was
sure.
definitely at the forefront of that change, and he was a absolutely ridiculous player. You only have to watch his highlight reels to really appreciate
Oh yeah,
the skill, the talent, the drive that he had.
yeah. So you walk into a convenience store down there and you see a Maradona, air freshener, or you see a Maradona, statue that you could take home that has a cruciform halo in the back, like he's almost like godlike. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah. Anyways, so very aware of just his, iconic nature in the sport. And again, I was looking for something different. And I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of learning about soccer, watching all the highlight reels, watching all the clips.
yeah,
Um, YouTube is beautiful for that. You just sink into like highlight reels or games that are like 30 years old, and you can just
yeah.
be lost in them.
I've done
Uh,
that before. It's been games from the 80s, 90s, 60s, and I'll
yeah.
sit there one night and I'll watch the whole match from the handshake at the beginning to
Yep.
the referee blowing the whistle and then again to the final whistle and post match interview. And it's very weird. It's very weird, but it is like mind blowing just to see and appreciate the talent those players had.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy now for people to say, "Oh, Messi versus Maradona," and like the person supporting Messi has never seen a Maradona game, and then
I,
person supporting Pele's never seen a full Pele game. So
yeah.
realistically, they have no judgment. So to have that opportunity to make a valid judgment, I think is very important.
Yeah. And
And it's
that
just
that's
fun to do.
that's kind of the debate that's going on right now in American circles with basketball. It's like LeBron versus Michael Jordan,
Yeah,
and so forth. That there are so many great guys from different eras that you can never possibly say who's the best. But I started focusing on Maradona, Messi, and Mbappe because I think they, like I was saying, they have a mythology about them, right? When you're watching those games in real time. So I watched every Michael Jordan game in real time growing up.
hmm
Like every playoff game at least of significance when the round one started until the NBA Finals.
yeah,
And when the Last Dance documentary came out during the pandemic, it mythologized him or almost put him at the godlike level, like nothing was ever in doubt. He was always going to win everything. He was that
yeah,
great. But I remember watching those games, and I was very nervous that things could go the other way. Right? So
yeah.
I think in a way, the winners always are, lifted up and have a mythology about them, as time goes on.
hmm
And Maradona is much like that. Messi is becoming like that after Qatar. Uh, I think Mbappe is one of those guys who will have, if assuming his career goes the way it's going, uh,
hmm
you know, gets in another World Cup and he, stays healthy. I think he's one of those guys who will, be part of, one of those mythological figures in sports.
I
And
definitely think
really,
he's positioned to be one of
yeah,
the greats. His World Cup record already is incredible. He's got a
yeah,
final and a win under his belt already, and he's probably like under 22, I believe, so or 23. So he's positioned perfectly. He played with PSG. Likely that he'll get a massive move to another club. So he definitely has the potential. Now a lot of people speculate, and that is of course a gamble to some extent because it could go any way. He could
yeah,
touch wood, he doesn't get injured, or his career could go wrong and he starts playing bad. But again, it's a risk. But I do think that sense of risk and excitement just makes the
yeah,
sport and the hobby more engaging. You're now glued to the screen watching a lot of his
yep,
games and highlights. As soon as I bought Jude Bellingham's pro debut, I now
Yep.
have to watch every goal he scores, every assist that he makes. And yes, so what? It's a little bit inflated the market, but it's
Yeah.
the sense of excitement. And I think, yes, it's speculative. And from an investment perspective, it's not the best. But if it makes your life more exciting and engaging, and you're now watching more football, I don't think it's too much of a problem. And people love to hate and say, "Oh, you're collecting modern players," but if that's an excitement that you enjoy, then I think there's no harm in that.
For sure. There is definitely a component of I always tell my friends it's like a patient form of sports gambling. Uh, you know, you get a debut of some prospect or something, and then you just, grab a cocktail
Watch
and
him,
watch
watch him
every
flow.
time yeah, grab a cocktail, watch every time he plays and follow him and, the ESPN score app and, watch every, highlight that you can find of him. Um yeah, it's pretty exciting. So that, yeah,
Just a,
form of speculation, entertainment, but yeah, it's
It is definitely speculation, and I put a post in our Discord comparing the sales data of Mbappe versus like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. And if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken, the average sale price of Cristiano Ronaldo and Mbappe is near enough level.
yeah,
Now, if you compare where they are, Cristiano Ronaldo has achieved far more, and he's a fantastic player.
yeah.
And I do think Mbappe will be great. Don't get me wrong, but for him to achieve Cristiano Ronaldo greatness is going to be very difficult.
He's got a
So
long road ahead of him
absolutely.
to get there for
So
sure.
arguably, Cristiano Ronaldo is a great buy, or on the other side of that, Mbappe is overpriced. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to look, but like I said, it's fun, and that's why we collect it. But let's see what. On that note, what sort of Mbappe tickets you have?
So this is the back to the hand of God.
Yeah.
I went off on a tangent here with collecting or whatever, but this is the piece right here that you were referring to,
Hmm. It is
and
incredible.
yeah, it, you know, I actually have a like a full ungraded version that's like a just a I think it's a category C as well that I need to
Okay.
send PSA to get graded as well, but it's got like the staple lines on the side here.
Yeah,
And
it's hard to avoid those. It's a shame, but that's
yeah,
just.
but shockingly, the thing that I really um, thought was cool about this ticket is that you know it was in the FIFA photographer pit, and
Hmm.
then it didn't have any staple marks in it. And again, I really had to do sort of my research. I'm like, is this legit? Like, um, you know, the gentleman I actually bought it from is the guy who runs Vintage Tickets, Mike
Yeah,
Horn.
Mike.
He's the yeah, he's the moderator of Booger's Ticket Stubs, and so that put me at ease when I was going after that ticket. I'm like, okay, here's like a fellow collector who's like, it's
Mike's
not
a
just some random
fantastic
guy.
guy.
Yeah, awesome guy. It's not just some random guy who like shows up once on like Boogers and is like, hey, anybody want to buy this hand of God?
Yeah.
So he really put me at ease regarding that. It was interesting because I saw this thing. I saw the ticket actually on eBay for a little bit, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"There's no going to be able to buy something like that." And then you know how eBay sends you those offers, those
Yeah.
automatic offers sometimes. And I got an automatic offer, and I was like, "Well, that's closer to what I'd be sort of willing
We're
to pay."
getting there.
We're getting there, yeah. And then, so I sent him a message, and I'm like, "Hey, uh, would you accept this?" Hint, hint, let's figure out a way to, do a direct deal.
Hmm.
So we can
Save
meet
out
in
some
the
fees, etc.
yeah, so we can meet in the middle and we both benefit. And he got the hint and he contacted me and then, it was kind of, from there where we sort of decided on a deal for it. But
It was an
yeah,
interesting one because me and Mike spoke about that because he has the PSA 6 of the stadium ticket.
yeah.
Of course, yours being the PSA 7 media ticket, which again we'll talk
Hmm.
about in a bit, comparing the differences between those two. But he was grading it, and I believe it was in grading for a long time because PSA needed to cross compare with different databases and
Yeah.
obviously verify its authenticity. And we always speculated on the grade and the value and stuff like that. And of course, I don't know what you ended up paying, but it was always like comparing the 7 versus the 6 and which one's worth more, and it was an
Yeah,
interesting debate. And I was always like, if it's a PSA 7, I don't see anything ever grading higher than this, just based off the premise that most falls are having staple holes, um,
yeah,
and they're just becoming more difficult to find.
yeah. I mean, it's been, it'll be almost 40 years since the event happened. So, how many of these are surviving in the condition of game day? Plus, I'm sure you've handled the 1986 World Cup tickets. They're
Yeah,
they're like paper. They're like paper. It's not like a hard cardboard, sort of stub or, a paper stock or something. It's like paper. So like it's very easy to destroy. Um,
absolutely. And on that note, because based off the understanding that that's thin, there's also some other tickets in over in the UK where it's literally paper thin, almost
yeah.
like a toilet roll to put it to a
Yeah.
comparison, like super thin, like you can almost crunch it up like that. So for someone to preserve it in such condition 40 years later
Yeah.
is incredible. So yeah, I think that's an amazing pickup on your behalf, and it is
Thank thank
when
you.
we've seen the pandemic boom, it was one that stood out. And as the market continues to grow and develop, I definitely believe that's the ticket that people are going to gravitate towards.
I definitely, like I've told you before, I pinch myself every day when I see this thing. It's definitely on the grail list for me and for I'm sure many other football collectors.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm rest assured that I'm going to be a great steward of this thing, and it would take a really large amount, or for me to um, sort of let it into slip into different hands. I mean, I'm always a collector first, and speculation is fun, but I'm kind of I've always been a collector first.
Very
Um,
nice. So on that note of collecting Maradona, is there any other Maradona tickets you have? Do you want to show off and display?
sure. So what I've been working on is I'm kind of doing a World Cup set building. When
Hmm.
like I was saying, Qatar, the pandemic, and then Qatar 2022 kind of changed it for me.
Hmm.
And like we don't have as much access to La Liga or Premier League or League One in the United States. I mean, MLS is a new thing with Messi coming over, and
Hmm.
now you can get an Apple subscription and stuff to watch it, but just never had as much exposure. So, the soccer that I was always exposed to was like, okay, World Cup's here. It's time to get serious, sit down, and really have fun and, watch some soccer. So there's a lot of religious, like sort of World Cup guys. So when Messi sort of won it, December 18th, 22, I was like, I really want to just get a ticket of the final. And then I was like, well, I got a ticket of the final. Let me get one of the semifinal. And then, it's just like this thing that just it becomes like this monster where it's like, well, I got the semifinal, so let me just try to get the entire championship run of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was like, well, they didn't win Saudi Arabia against Saudi Arabia. That was a pretty big upset. So I'm just going to leave that one.
I really want that ticket. That Saudi Arabia ticket I really want. And that's solely based on the premise that after the game they interview one of the people on the street, and it was, I believe, a Saudi fan. And
Yeah.
it was the first game, as you say, it was Saudi versus Argentina. And Messi was pretty quiet that game, and of course Saudi won. And
Yeah.
one of the guys goes, "Where is Messi? Where is Messi?"
Where's Messi? Where's Messi? Right.
And
Yeah.
everyone now knows this moment as "Where is Messi?" And I think
Where's
it's almost become iconic to the point that I want it and I only own the final. So I'm not even doing it for that championship run, as you say. So yeah, that's
so
a very
yeah.
cool one.
And then my thinking changed on that, and I was like, I really need the Saudi Arabia ticket. So I was able to construct, about 2 weeks after they won it, I constructed the entire, championship run because
Mhm.
I thought to myself, what's a better time to pick it up than now when there's not like reproductions on the market yet?
Yeah,
And because as time has gone on, about 6 7 months later, you see all these reproductions with only one line of text as opposed
absolutely. Yeah,
to 2 lines of text in the authentic tickets. But so I really sort of my focus is try to construct all these World Cup runs. So I would try to collect every Messi ticket from every
damn.
World Cup appearance.
So that's
Yeah,
something you started out.
Yeah, that's how I started out. And then what I'm trying to do is actually, as time goes on, I'm kind of trying to um, find better condition tickets of the ones that are,
Upgrade along the way.
yeah, that are a little more beat up. But I've been doing the same thing with the Maradona Argentina run from '86. So I could kind of show you the hand of God. But the one that really stands out to me is the one that I think is very underrated on in that run is the 1986. Basically, it's the semifinal against Belgium. The
Yeah.
quarterfinal was in England, and the
He
semifinal.
scored 2 goals in that game.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
And then I think I actually put that ticket up on Ticket Time Machine as a
Hmm.
video where every time he scores, he just pops up and he jumps. So I put it to like Van Halen jump because I thought that was like perfect. And that was like a big song at that time anyways. But that digital collection sort of helps me bring to life, some of these tickets that I think are sort of underrated. So this is the
Hmm.
Belgium one where he scored the 2 goals against Belgium in the semifinal.
Yeah.
Um, and then let's see. So I'm really looking for a full of this, but I haven't been able to come across one yet. This is the final West Germany. Um,
Yes, this is a fantastic ticket, and it's the
yeah,
classic gold as well.
yeah. And then this one is it's kind of a lesser known match earlier. It's the Uruguay Argentina. I think it's
Okay.
round of 16. It might be round of 16 or like quarter final maybe.
Hmm.
Um, and then this is the Bulgaria match, which was a little. I think this was may have been. It was definitely one of the earlier matches because it's dated June 10th. So it
Yeah.
was either it was right after I think the group stage ended, and then this is the one against South Korea where they just beat the hell out of Maradona. They pushed him all over the place, and he was
Yeah, I
always
remember this.
he spent more time on the ground, I think, in that match than he did, actually doing anything. But he was able to get 3 assists in that game, which, I mean, so he was, even when they were beating him up, he was able to put his team in a position to sort of really dominate you know, that match. So yeah, those are the one that is really escaping me right now, and it's really hard to find is the Argent. I find this a lot with the World Cup tickets. The group stage tickets
Yeah.
can be very hard because people don't hang on to those perhaps as they do for the knockout stages.
What? Who is it
Um,
again? Sorry.
it was Argentina versus Italy, so it was like a Group A match, and they tied Italy. It was like 1-1.
You know
Not
what?
a
We make this a conversation. The podcast is a conversation, and I think I would do this in a normal conversation. I have just behind me here, maybe that ticket. So I want to go check
you
for you
do.
now. This is why. This is why we have the show for these sort of things here. Now, if I can help a fellow collector whilst on the podcast, I think that would be incredible.
That would be amazing.
Because I bought the Hand of God ticket, and it was in a collection of other
Yeah.
tickets. So potentially it's in this pile here. So there's, I think, how many do I have? Four or five full tickets. Um,
Oh my God, that is
one of them being the Hand of God, of course, but I'm not sure if I
yeah,
have this game. Do you know what game it is? Do you know what the
yeah.
date was?
The date. Um, I want to say June 4th or June 2nd. Actual date's escaping me right now, but it was like early June. It was against Italy. They tied each other 1-1. I want to say June. Let's see what the earliest date of this is, because I think maybe the South Korea game would have been earlier than that. Or so this one is June. The South Korea would have been after that, and I think it's June 2nd. So it would have been maybe earlier in June or the first week of June. I'm not sure.
Well,
I'll
let's
have to.
message after, but I have June 7th and June 10th here. So if it's either of those, then
Okay,
it could be some good luck. But yeah, they are
we'll
beautiful tickets. The 1986s, I love
oh,
them, and then the Hand of God is a perfect tee to that.
we'll have to talk offline. That's amazing.
Yeah, I
I
think.
looking for this one for a while, like the Italy Argentina match, because it's like a Group A, and I think maybe people just sell it off in lots, not thinking much of it. But
Yeah, it does.
for a set builder, it's like, even no matter how insignificant, when you're trying to build the set, it's part of the
Mhm.
story.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think it was mentioned in the previous podcast about potentially what ticket collecting needs to grow in the future and to kind of expand the hobby, I would say, and that was
yeah,
one that was mentioned, set collecting, and it is really fun when you
yeah,
have a goal in mind, whether it's every World Cup final, whereas every I don't know, someone's trying to collect every Cristiano Ronaldo goal, or as you say,
yeah,
championship runs for World Cup finals. It's really cool, really interesting, and it completes that journey because you have to do that extra research. You have to go
yeah,
watch the game and the highlights, and now it's like if you don't have it, it feels weird.
yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw. I think maybe Eric on your prior episode mentioned that when
Yeah,
you were talking
exactly.
set building stuff, and that's exactly what how I fell deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of transitioning from just soccer card, baseball cards, basketball cards, soccer cards to tickets. And I've told you this, I'm about the happiest I am in my collecting journey, like right
Mhm,
now. It's because there's a lot of you've asked me about some challenges, like as an American collector of
mhm.
soccer. And first of it is the geographic isolation, because all the good tickets are on a different continent usually. They're in
Yeah,
Europe, South America. There may be some in the States that kind of made their way over, but usually all the good ones, like I'm when I have downtime, I'm on the sale room.
yeah.
I'm on
Fantastic platform.
Todo Colecciones.
Yeah,
Of course, we're all of us are on eBay nonstop
yeah,
with our we set our filters and alerts, and I'll get a push notification at like 3 a.m. and
yeah.
my wife is like, "What are you doing?"
Work. I'm working. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah. So yeah, she'll like, I heard a bunch of buzzes and beeps on your phone like at 3 a.m. Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, it's probably ticket stuff. Um,
Well,
but
I want to move on to this because I think it's very interesting. In
yeah,
my opinion, the GOAT of football or soccer, however you want to put it, is Lionel Messi.
yeah,
I grew up watching him. He's an incredible player, and 95% of the people kind of agree with this consensus now. And you do have a pretty nice and growing collection of his. Do you want to kind of show off some of the tickets you've got for him?
yeah. So like I said, it sort of started off with basically just going after it's Messi sort of started off as basically going to get like after those hospitality tickets from the
Hmm.
Qatar World Cup. So basically I started with the final, went to uh, semifinal Croatia, quarterfinal Netherlands, and just kind of went down the aisle. I still have to send these to PSA.
Hmm.
There's the final right there. You know,
Fantastic. Can I ask, does it have the highlighter mark on the back? The yellow highlighter mark in the top left?
I don't see that on the back.
Well, that's fantastic because it's like a common mistake, not a mistake. When you entered into the stadium and you'd walked in, they would take their yellow highlighter and rub the pen mark on the back. So it's
Oh,
very common that a lot have that. And the first one I picked up did, and I sold it for like £380 with the highlighter mark, which at the time I thought was a great price. Um, Later of which I managed to get another final ticket and sell it for like £700 with the highlighter mark. So to
yes.
find them without is very difficult.
So that's interesting that you bring that up, because I sort of never noticed that. I think I bought these so quickly after the tournament ended,
Mhm.
that I don't know, maybe, but here's a Poland versus Argentina from that World Cup run, and there is a highlighter mark there.
There we go.
And
Okay, yeah.
now that you've mentioned it, I see one of them has like a double pen mark on the back for the it's the Australia, so it's 1C versus 2D, so it's Australia versus Argentina, and it's got like a double pen mark on the back. But yeah, I never luckily I guess the final doesn't have the highlighter mark, which is kind of
Yeah.
a sought after ticket. So yeah,
If
I
there's one that's not going to have it, it's that one. But I do also remember seeing on PSA, they don't grade it as an MK so far as I'm
oh,
aware.
Well, that's
So
good.
you will get the fair grade for it. I don't know whether that's because it happens when you walk in the stadium or just naturally because it's a highlighter mark rather than a pen mark.
Yeah, that's good to know. This is the cool thing about like ticket collecting. You learn all these nuances every day by just talking to people. And
Absolutely.
this is the Saudi Arabia. I actually do have a hospitality ticket on the way, but then I got this one to sort of signify that this was their loss. So I got like their kind of the regular one,
Uh-huh.
just to differentiate in the collection a little bit. Um, some of the, I was able to complete 2018, 2014, 2010, and 2006. Um, but
With
the
finals or just like winning runs?
uh, so for all of like Messi's appearances,
Blimey.
yeah. So that basically it would be every Argentina ticket or every Messi appearance in the World Cup since 2006. I
Yeah.
think there's one that he didn't appear in 2006, which is like Ivory
First
Coast.
game. Yeah.
Ivory, yeah, Ivory Coast, and he was absent from that. But I'm like, for it's like $20. I'm just gonna grab one and complete the.
Forget
Um,
about it then.
yeah, yeah. So, and then it sort of went down the rabbit hole a little further this summer, where I started running into guys like you, like Lucas, David
Hmm.
Sabat, um, and then one of your other guests, Alex Paneteros, him and his
Yeah.
brother had the collection together. So when I started going down this messy rabbit hole of different, beyond World Cup stuff, I started to find all these guys. And then David actually was nice enough to invite me onto the Discord with all of you guys. And it's really been a blast. Every day when I'm bored, I just open up that Discord and I find something new and amazing. Um,
Even sometimes when there's like a day with no messages, I'm getting like, "What's up? Where is
yeah,
everyone?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
surely someone's got something new. I need some excitement.
yeah,
It is that sort of buzz of like, I want to see what other people have got. I want to get some new stuff, and it kind of gives you that drive to go back on eBay or
yeah.
whatever platform it may be to find something new.
So I think Porto is a gateway drug for a lot of us when we're going to the Messi
Hmm.
ticket.
Yeah.
I did pick up one of the Portos because I was just studying the prices compared to the pandemic, and the prices of that Porto debut, like a full stub, are so much more kind of in reach or affordable compared to what they were auctioning off for at Golden, back in 2020 and 2021. So I was like, why not? And if you, in the scheme of things, I know people think Porto is like, oh, there's too many of these floating around, but when you compare it to like the Michael Jordan rookie card for Fleer
Hmm.
86, there's probably about 320 PSA 10s of that card. Whereas the Porto, there's only about 50, 60 still in the pop report. So
I think across full and subs, there's more close to 200.
is it
Which
okay?
again is a high number, especially compared to the total industry size. But if you
Yeah,
compare that for the amount of football fans, 3.5 billion, compare that
yeah,
to the amount of Messi fans or Argentina fans or Barcelona fans or ticket collectors in the future, it is a relatively small thing. And every hobby needs that one
yeah,
item. For Pokemon, it's the base set Charizard. For
yep,
soccer collecting, I believe it to be that. For every niche they have that, so I don't think there's any harm in that. And I think for anyone, it's a key pickup,
yeah.
especially on the foundation that the pro debut, as you know, and I know you've shown a lot of interest in finding one, is a really difficult ticket to find.
Oh yes, I mean Steve Shelley with or Shellbines with Espanol. That like you asked me what a Grail is, and that's a Grail. Like the Espanol debut, the official Barca debut.
Yeah,
Um, I mean Porto is the friendly at Dragao Stadium, in Portugal, where he wasn't. It wasn't like it was kind of an unofficial debut, but that Espanol that's a banger. That is
absolutely.
that
So
that is one hell
Mike
of a
that you bought the Hand of the God ticket, sorry, the Hand of God ticket from, he owns the PSA 6 Messi ticket,
does
which
he?
he will not let go of. So I've
I, I
tried.
don't I don't blame him. I don't if you know if Shelly never sells that thing or you know Mike never sells that. I don't that those are grails that I mean you would have to really offer them something great for them to let go of it, and I don't blame them. As a collector, there's a real you try not to get emotionally attached to things, but it's part of the thing. Just you feel such an emotion towards this stuff
And
that
it is that feeling of like I will probably never find this again. Like I really
yeah,
like the hand of God. There's some floating around. Every like these tickets are floating around if you put enough effort in, but the Messi pro debut it can't be found.
yeah,
And I'll give you some interesting insights. So I think it was at the Barcelona, what was it? The Barcelona Olympic Stadium. So Espanyol were having their stadium renovated or transferring to a new one. I'm not sure. So they were playing at their home stadium was the Barcelona Olympic Stadium, which has a capacity of 50,000 people or around 50,000, of which most of the stadium was not most, some of the stadium was empty. So I think it had a capacity of 33 or 35,000. Now, everyone that was a home ticket fan, Espanyol, was given a season ticket. So that cuts out a massive supply. Now, the entry for physical tickets was mostly given to Barcelona fans, of which was a very
yeah,
small fraction of that stadium. And then you got to refine it to that small group. Now, who actually kept it? Again, a
yeah.
very small thing. So just refining it down and down and down, like is a very difficult find.
I mean that I listened with interest to Shelbein's story about how he was able to find a guy that had it stashed away for that long,
Mm-hmm.
and that just the you almost try to think of the life of the ticket from the ticket's perspective. If the ticket was an alive and breathing thing, like what has the ticket, and
Where's it
that
been?
yeah, and that's that. So back to this Messi stuff. That's kind of why I started going down these other rabbit holes with Messi. I was able to get in touch with Lucas. Great guy, just an absolute great guy. One of the godfathers of collecting, probably as far as soccer ticket stuff goes. And I was able to purchase this from him in the middle of the summer. It is this is the full of the Hungary Argentina international friendly. There's better grades of it. I know there's Alex may have a PSA 6, and I know
Mm-hmm.
Long may have a PSA 6 or 7. I know Lucas just has a Beckett 8 actually that he put up for sale too. So, but this is like kind of one of those things where it's like the start of a journey of the greatest of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in Hungary, and just kind of a international game, and
Mm-hmm.
I really wonder how many of those survive. There's still a handful of them. It's not as hard as the Espanol, but that to me is kind of one ticket that I think is amazing. And
You mentioned that it's against Hungary. Much like Messi's international debut, so was Maradona's.
yeah, yeah,
And this one is a very, very rare ticket and a very interesting ticket to try and find. So having that as a pair, the Maradona and the Messi international debut would be really cool.
it would be amazing. It's the limiting factor is you can't like break the bank all the time on stuff, so you really have to like sort of slow play it.
Refine
And
what you're gonna spend your money on.
yeah, and that's why I narrowed my search down to just three guys. I know those three guys are expensive, but again, it goes back to what three guys are almost mythological figures in soccer, like Jordan
Mhm.
would be in the United States for basketball. The guys who get the mythologies wrote about them are always kind of the winners, and unfortunately, the amazing players like Ronaldo just get kind of unfortunately he's just sort of I feel unfairly being forgotten right now. But
His time will
yeah,
come. His time will absolutely come, whether it's in the next few years or in 10 years. He had an unfortunate spell at Manchester United, went to Saudi where he wasn't kind of fairly represented, and he has just been kind of pushed down the drain at the moment. But he's an incredible player.
he
He's
is.
very well loved and he does have a very cult following. So that will definitely come back into play. Um, but yeah, that's just a timing thing, I think, right now.
You were asking me about Messi tickets. This is the other one. It's more commonplace. I mean, you could find the Serbia Montenegro World Cup debut, first goal Messi. They
Hmm.
you can find them. They pop up pretty often on eBay as raw tickets or graded tickets. I know there's a there's
Hmm.
there's there's a decent handful on for sale. The one that the interesting story about this is that it's the PSA 7, so it's I think
Highest
there's two
graded.
Yeah, there's two of the highest graded, which is PSA 7. This is one of them. Um, and it's an interesting story about how I got this one. So you know how I talk about the eBay alerts, they just sort of pop up or whatever. It was like later in the summer, maybe earlier in the fall. I was just working, and I saw like the buzz on my phone, and I was like, okay, Messi buzz, World Cup, Serbia, Montenegro, and I have like a 5 of it. So I just kind of looked at it, and then I was like, wait, that's a 7. And studying the pop reports like you and I do,
Hmm.
you kind of know where the grades are, and I was like, wait, that's a 7. And then I looked at the price, and the guy had it posted for I think $799.
I remember seeing this one. It's a
Yeah,
great buy. This was a great
yeah.
buy.
So to me, I thought about it for like about 3-4 minutes, and I was like, well, I have one, but then like the devil on this side of my head was like, that's a PSA 7. You need to buy it. And so I was like, yeah, I just pressed buy it now. And then
Yeah,
part of me like, there's no way this guy sends it to me. He like there's no way, because when you buy something and you think you got a good deal,
yeah.
um, part of you is like, I can't really celebrate this until it's in my hands.
Oh, absolutely. That's a massive thing. And there's a lot of people in the community that, or a few people in the community, when I get something I want, I share. But it's only when it comes through the front door that
Yeah,
I share because I've had so many stories
right.
of people like canceling orders or pretending they never shipped it or pretending it never arrived.
Yeah,
So definitely a lesson to anyone out there listening is to wait
yeah.
until you have it in your hands and then only then can you celebrate.
Yeah, that if I know you asked some of the other guys, what's your advice? That is probably my biggest piece of advice is
For your
don't
mental more than anything.
don't celebrate anything that's not in your hands yet. Um,
Yeah.
because so lo and behold, I mean, he was really good about it. He honored the price, and just no questions asked. Didn't even send me a message, saying, hey, I may have undersold this or whatever. Obviously gave him great reviews and everything, but to
Mhm.
me it was thrilling because I was like, that's a PSA 7 of Messi's World Cup debut. To me that was worth a lot more than I paid for it, even though I paid a lot for it. Um,
Oh, yeah, I would definitely say it's a good price.
yeah,
Understanding the market, there's definitely a lot of them out there, as you say, because it is a World Cup ticket. It was in Germany. The culture of keeping things in Germany is
yeah,
quite high. A lot of tourists go, so they might keep it and take it back to their countries. But like you say, when it's a population rarity or grade rarity, it's very different to actual
yeah,
rarity of supply. So definitely a good pickup. I've actually got one in my collection, but there's no way it's getting a 7.
yeah. Yeah, and then you were about some of the other messy stuff. So the interesting thing about that, so there's two sides of it, right? You celebrate it after you get it, and you feel like you got a
Hmm.
great deal. Um, I was at this was just 2 weeks ago. I was at the mechanic shop getting an oil change in my car. So I had nothing to do. I'm just sitting there waiting for my oil to get changed and him to rotate my tires and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, the buzz goes off on my phone. And I had like a filter set for Messi, Croatia, Argentina. Which would be the Luka Modric
Hmm.
debut,
Yeah.
first international goal, Messi. And having I had actually bought one of these from Lucas, earlier,
Yeah.
which is it's folded in half and it's graded a 1.5. But to me, sometimes the ticket is more than the grade itself, especially a ticket like that. So the buzz went off on my phone on my search filters or whatever, and I just scrolling down, and it turns out to be a clean copy, like a pristine looking copy of
Yeah.
this art Croatian ticket. It like doesn't have a fold, nothing. I mean, looks pristine. And he set it on auction for about 300, and then he had to buy it now for 550. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. Buy it now. Don't even let it go to auction, because like
Uh-huh.
I know how hard it is to get this ticket, and I know what I paid for the one with Lucas.
Absolutely, yeah.
So again, this was like a no-brainer, but when I bought the ticket, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this guy's going to send me a message saying that this was a mistake. And lo and
Uh-huh.
behold, 20 minutes later, he sends me a thing saying, this was a mistake.
Which it wasn't, by the way. I'm almost certain it wasn't a mistake. He probably realized it was a quick purchase.
Maybe, yeah,
Maybe let me reflect on this price. Let me do some more research.
yeah,
It's always the case. If you wait a few hours,
yeah,
albeit a risk, the
yeah,
likelihood of that happening is far lower.
yeah. So I guess my fault is I bought it too early. Either way, it's not a big deal. You know, like I said, it's both sides of the coin. Sometimes you get the ticket that you thought was underpriced, and sometimes it
Hmm.
doesn't work out. And he sent me a message, and I checked his feedback, and he had only sold like one or two items, so he's not a big seller. But he was like, just this was a mistake. I'm not going to send the ticket, and you can give me bad feedback if you want. I'm like, I'm not going to give you bad feedback. This like I'm going to be very civil about this. I told him, I said, if you ever change your mind, reach out to me, and we can
Hmm.
figure out a price. And he's like, no, this is in my collection, and I'd like to keep it. And I'm,
So he accidentally listed it by
yeah,
accident, typed in the description by accident, took
right.
a photo, and by accidentally pressed list. Now
Hey, it goes both ways. I'm not
it's
going to
the
cry.
game.
It's okay. You win some, you lose some. I'm not going to cry about it. Again, I think a lot of being a good collector or steward of the hobby is just being polite to people. If he doesn't want to sell it, he hasn't sent it yet. Again,
Hmm.
it's his item. I know that it's kind of disappointing, from one perspective, but hey, that's life. You can't have everything you want, and these will pop up some other time. So, and
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
part.
And the time will come, and it's the common thing that everyone says: just be patient, and these things will pop
Yeah,
up.
yeah. It's really, and you know what? It's the thrill of the chase. I think part of why I'm so happy is I'm on these wild goose chases across the world, and I'm talking to guys across the pond like you and
Yeah,
Lucas and guys in Australia like the Paneteros brothers, and you tend to network and make good friends. Michael Horn, back in
great guy.
San Diego or whatever, and David Sabatel, New York. You tend to. I think it's important to kind of have good karma in the ticket collecting community, and like if things don't work out one day, you know if you as long as you put out good karma out there and you try to be a good steward of the hobby, I think good things happen eventually anyways. And like you said, these tickets, it's not like there's just a couple of them floating around. They'll pop up from time to time, and that's the thrill of the chase.
You'd hope.
So
You'd hope.
I yeah, we all yeah. That's the thrill of the chase though. The excitement that you feel when when the alert goes off from sale room or
Yeah.
eBay, it's incomparable. And I mean, that's what I've tried to do with I talk to my college buddies about this a lot where you know they're like, what are you doing collecting these scraps of paper? What is going on with you, Modi? Like, what have you gone totally mental, or are you just sick? And part of the genesis of that ticket time machine collection was not really to resell anything, but it was to display like when you put all the clips together and you put on some really good piece of music and then you put your ticket up there, if I can convey to my friends like 5% of the joy I feel when I get a ticket, um, when they watch that digital display of it or like a reel about it,
Hmm.
if they can even feel 5% of the joy that I feel, I'm like, that's pretty darn good,
That's worth it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There
So,
is something about that. Definitely bringing the video memory alongside the ticket memory. And I think is it Hall of Stubs? I think his name is on
yeah,
Instagram. He
yeah,
collects debut performances. So the
yeah,
first performance of I don't know whatever it may be, first live performance, the first TV presentation or whatever it may be. And it's really cool to see like, especially when it's a debut and connecting that, how
yeah,
young they were, how innocent they were, how
yeah,
unknowing of the future they were, and then connecting that with a ticket adds a sense of excitement. And especially considering tickets don't really have the best eye appeal, as we know. Some are beautiful, but
yeah.
some are very simple and very plain. So to add that kind of comparison is very cool.
Yeah, it's funny. The funny thing with ticket collecting, like I was telling you earlier, you know, everything in retrospect, when you go back in time, seems certain. But when you're in the moment and you're like watching Messi play and you're like, God, I hope he is able to get the World Cup this time and, cap off the crown of his career. Or like when I'm watching like Michael Jordan in like the 92 playoffs when he's only won one title, I'm like, is this guy going to be able to repeat? But in retrospect, when they make documentaries about these people and, make a mythology about them, everything in retrospect is certain. But when you were in that moment, I think us ticket collectors recognize that in the moment, we are in the good old days right now. And at some point, someone else who grows up like 30 years from now
Absolutely, absolutely.
will look back and like, wow, the stuff that we're collecting, that will be the good old days to them. And that's how I feel about stuff when I grew up. Like I look at Jordan tickets and I missed the boat on that, even though I was in it. I was at the epicenter of it. I went out and collected newspapers after he won every title. And I was
And
in
that's
it.
always the case. That will always be the case. You're living through, no matter what era you are living through, historical significance. It's just how you decide to encapsulate that, what you
Yeah.
decide to preserve. Like you say, if you decided to preserve tickets from back then, you would have been very well off. But
Yeah.
again, that's just life, and that's why people will always come back historically to relive those moments. I'll give the example of Pokemon. A lot of people buy the Pokemon that they wish they had on the playground, or won a trade that they wish they never made, and that isn't because they want that card. That's because they want to relive that moment and that feeling. And it's the same with football. These moments are so heart feeling. Like we really feel these moments, whether it's Messi winning the World Cup or your favorite team winning the Premier League or Leicester City breaking and defying the odds. Like these moments mean so much, and the ticket isn't holding the ticket that actually matters. It's knowing and connecting with that original memory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what's up here and how it makes you feel. So um, when I look at these tickets and like I see how all those clips of Maradona make me feel, and it takes me back, even though I didn't watch it happen at the time, I was aware of it
Mhm.
happen. And it takes me back to a 7-year-old where my dad took me to get some baseball cards, and that was really the beginning of the journey. And that was in 1986, right? During that time. So there's an immense amount of nostalgia with it, and I know there's a crop of kids out there right now who saw that Messi final with Mbappe, the greatest final ever, probably will watch in our lifetimes. And 30 years from now, they're going to have a job and be able to buy some things and not have to ask mom and dad for some money for some, to get some hanger packs of baseball cards,
Yeah,
and they'll want these items. So, um, I sat there with my daughter and watched the World Cup final, and I just in the moment, I was like, "This is the good old days." Like I just saw the greatest final I've ever seen in my life. Um,
that final broke so many records. I think it was
yeah,
the second most or joint most goals scored in a final. Mbappe scored a hat trick. Messi won his first World Cup with 2 goals.
yeah,
It ticked every box you could ever imagine. It
yeah,
was like this game was so significant in every realm, and then the fact that it was Messi's kind of goat symbolization, it was even
yeah.
better.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember like December 2022 when it was down to France and Morocco and Argentina Croatia. I'm like,
I remember it so clearly.
if there's a way to rig this, I really want art. Like I love what Morocco and Croatia have done, but if anybody could write a better script, it's Messi versus Mbappe, old generation
Yeah,
versus new generation. The guy,
passing of the torch.
yeah, the guy has, the goat to get his like final achievement has to face the greatest challenge of all, which is Mbappe getting a hat trick in the final. And then it goes down to penalty goals, and then Messi is helpless because he's on the side as Gonzalo Montiel is kicking that final kick in the goal, and he's just with his mates. He's with his buddies, just
Arms around like that. I remember.
they're doing they're praying to Maradona and Jesus, and they're all just, and then he finally collapses. I mean,
He
what a
drops
moment!
down to his knees, and then everyone runs off thinking that he's gonna run, and he's just down there like
And then
so
they
happy, and then everyone follows him again.
and then they run back to him.
Yeah,
I mean, like So I mean, I know that gives you joy. That like the amount of joy just going through that memory in my head again and again and again. I mean, that's what tickets are all about, you know. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, my phone is gonna die, and I'm recording the podcast on there.
oh,
So I
oh
just
man,
want to wrap it up as quickly as possible. I want to know, you've obviously ticking off a lot of grails in your collection. If you do want to disclose, is there any grails that you really want to kind of tick off? And it's a good opportunity to kind of reflect on your collection, but also potentially any of the listeners might have this ticket and can reach out and help you kind of accelerate that mission. So what are some tickets you're after?
I mean, I think both of us talked about earlier, which is the Espanyol, Messi Barca debut. I think one that really stands out to me is the Messi Getafe goal in 2000. I think it's two,
Absolutely.
where it's almost Maradona-esque. He's just cutting down the field, juking out everybody. Everybody's falling off to the side. Nobody knows what to
Yeah.
do, and he just pops it in, and you're just like, wow, how did he do that?
It is a
Uh,
near mirror image of the goal of the century as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that
absolutely.
set as well, that match set.
Yeah. And then I would say I would throw this on there, which is I'm pretty sure Lucas has this, and I'm pretty sure Shellbine's just got a graded copy of it, which is Albacete.
Pro
First,
goal one.
yeah, goal number one, Albacete. I think those would probably be the ones that I'm really chasing. But otherwise, right now, it's just trying to upgrade the grades as far as the World Cup, master like
Mm.
that for Messi and Maradona goes. Um, I'm sorry, you had another question that you wanted to ask me, and I forgot. I'm like so excited.
Um, I can't remember. What was that question? Remind me.
I
Let me check.
You just asked, but I think you just asked. There was another question. So it was like Grails versus. I don't know. It's okay. No big deal. It's fine.
Well, listen, we could talk forever, so maybe that leads us nicely to an episode 2 in the future. And
Gladly,
hopefully you can collect even more tickets and have many more interesting stories to share.
gladly. Taylor, absolute honor to talk to you. To
Thank you
be
very
on
much.
the podcast, I watch it religiously. You know that I do the Peloton bike, but when I on my off days I do the treadmill, and you were on it when I'm
It's
walking.
an amazing way to keep you walking for a bit longer. It's that extra
It,
push.
it makes the walk a lot less painful, actually very enjoyable. So
Well, thank you very
again,
much, and that's a credit to the guests as well that share their amazing stories.
for sure, it's an absolute honor to be invited by you on this, and I'm definitely up for part two if you want. So
Absolutely, we'll give it some time, and then we'll make it happen. Thank you
great.
so much again. Take care.
Take care, Taylor.
Bye bye.
Best wishes.